Hey there.
Hey Parker, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Again, I just want to say thank you for all this. I know it's a little hectic with everything going on, but it's a big help for this project I'm working on.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I'm happy to help where I can.
All right. So this is probably just gonna take a couple minutes. Uh, I just want to kind of ask you like how you got into casting. I'm sure you've been asked these questions before, and just kind of like your thought process through casting and stuff like that. And I'm recording it, and just want to make sure you're okay with that. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. The audio quality's not great because I'm on my phone because I don't have my microphone with me, but
mhm.
I apologize.
It'll be fine. It'll work for the purpose of the project. If I can't hear anything, if it cuts out, I'll just tell you and just maybe say it again or something.
Yeah, for
All right. But if you're ready, so I'm gonna start recording. All right. Um, hello, Parker. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for doing this. So I just want to start by asking you, how did you first get into casting? And then did you cast other esports other than Siege? And then how did you initially get into Siege?
So I guess Siege is the first thing that I've actually casted in any real bona fide way. My entry into casting was back in 2010. I helped with a bunch of people who were working on a Call of Duty PC league as I was a player for one of the teams, and I was one of the admins for the league. And actually, during a team meeting, they said that I had a very pleasing voice to listen to, and they asked if I would possibly branch into casting for some of the events. Now, my schedule wasn't really great because I was an active player, so I think I did like two off-stream matches, and that was about it. And then after that, I did I think like two or three fun games for my buddy's TF2 Highlander team. I don't even they weren't streamed by any means, and then that was kind of it. And I I guess a couple people encouraged me to start casting, and they liked the sound of my voice and all that jazz. I guess early 2017. So I started with Overwatch, just doing a bunch of tryouts and some spectator matches and some fun events for Overwatch, just a bunch of pug games. And then one day I decided, well, I really like Rainbow Six. Let's try this for Rainbow Six, and it just kind of went from there. Started working for a bunch of amateur leagues, and then next thing you know, I was casting pro league last year.
All right, cool. And so then obviously I know you live in Poland. How big of a jump was that like to kind of just like I don't know risk it all moving from your home and everything to Poland on this jump with a job offer? Like, how big of a risk was that like, and how passionate were you towards casting to be able to confidently do that?
It wasn't my first time actually that I just decided to leave home last minute. In 2014, I was in my last year of school, and I deferred my final year, and basically on a whim accepted a job opportunity 2-ish thousand miles west in Canada in the Rocky Mountains. So I mean I that was a pretty big adjustment, living on my own, working in an industry that I'd never worked in before, working for a pretty big hotel company. I think that kind of helped prepare me. But I mean, moving to an entirely different continent that, takes almost a day to travel to and from when you factor everything in, with a significant language barrier. And given the fact that, I enjoyed casting, I think a lot of people when they're finding their way through the amateur scene, most people have aspirations to go professional at some point. And I mean, I was no different, but it wasn't a priority. It just kind of happened. And yeah, I'll be honest with you, it's kind of jarring. But at the end of the day, I had a pretty good support network for the people who had previously worked there and people who still work there. And the one thing that I think that was really beneficial was the contract was only for about a month and a half. And I knew that if come, mid to end of November, I didn't like it anymore, I knew that there was an off season in the old schedule where we wouldn't really be working until February or March. So I knew that there was time for me to come back home and assess if there was, how much of an adjustment it was.
Okay, cool. All right. So now I'm gonna just try and move into like while you're actually casting a match. what goes through your head? Like, is it just first thing that comes off the dome? Because I know it's super fast paced. Like, Rainbow Six is a very fast paced game. Like, sometimes you'll just get a quad feed in the and you just have to go with it. Like, what goes through your head in the middle of a game when something happens, and then also how do you just fill the time, kind of the dead zones?
I was actually having this conversation at TwitchCon this weekend. Rainbow Six shares a lot of similarities to the NFL in the sense that it's a lot of downtime with short bursts of action. And it's something that in the esports community is shared by the fighting game community, the FGC, because I don't know how familiar you are with FGC casting, but a lot of it is very casual. And because a lot of times in fighting games, there's, the minute timer, there's not a lot of action that happens at the start. There's a lot of parrying, there's a lot of, zoning and all that jazz. And then finally they'll start chipping away at each other's health. And, there's not really a ton of action. So when you're filling time, Rainbow Six is designed quite well for color commentary and analytical discussion and dissection, because, you've got what? You've got the operator select phase and 6-pick now, which eats up about 30 to 40 seconds, give or take. Then you've got the prep phase through the first round through the first minute of live action, which usually doesn't have much action in it. So you've got a good minute and a half to 2 minutes, if not a little bit longer, to do a bit of post-round analysis. What happened in the previous round? What were the pitfalls of the teams? What were their follies? Where did teams really succeed? Was there anything glaringly obvious that you saw either as a positive or a negative? And then when you hit the 2 minute and 10-second 2 minute mark left in the round, you can take some time to pivot, start focusing on, pre-action, start focusing on that. And then usually action can start anytime after that. As for the cut and thrust of it, when you're actually in it, well, I mean, it really depends on the way teams play it out. There are teams that are harder to cast than others, just based upon their unpredictability and their explosiveness. And, some maps definitely see it too. Mm-hmm. But it's very difficult to find yourself in a position where you're not just kill feed reading, which happens a lot. I find it happens a ton in amateur levels. And I mean, it even happens in Pro League too. And we're really at the mercy of the spectator system. If you, with 30 seconds or 40 seconds to go, if you don't have a good picture or visualization of what's happening, of how the different teams have their different members spread out, if you don't have a good look at what's happening, it can be very difficult for you to get a good handle on what is about to happen. How do you pace yourself appropriately? What are the points to touch upon? And sometimes action happens too fast for you to be able to get your footing, and that's okay. There are times when I'm not just going to be like, Brian gets a kill, traded off by, Canadian, traded off by, Slash, traded off by, etc. You can't really do that. So you can say, 2 big early picks from Evil Geniuses, immediately answered to bring us back to a 2v2 from Rogue, equalizing, exactly. So as for how do you prepare for it, you can't really. I think it just comes with time. But I like to think that I'm just as a person, I'm very fortunate to have the ability to think quickly on my feet and be able to draw from other sports, esports. I watch a lot of traditional sports as well, so I think that really helps. And I watch hockey, which tends to be the fastest paced sport in America. So I'm used to hearing, your Doc Emmerichs, your Pat Foley's, your Bob Coles, your Jim Hewson's, who can rattle things off quite fast and just have that mindset to be able to call things quickly.
All right, so you would say probably it's more of an almost now instinctive rather than any pre-planning or something like that towards that last minute of the round when the action starts going down.
Yeah, very little is pre-planned. I will tell you that for, the stuff that I pre-plan to say on broadcast usually doesn't involve play-by-play. It's typically more to round out a broadcast if, so-and-so enters, with the most kills in North America. This team has, been undefeated on Coastline for the last, 4 months. This is, the 8th time that these teams have matched up, in the last, half year, if you count all land, run-ins, etc. So there's that kind of stuff is usually pre-written. Okay. But very rarely do I have stuff. Like if there's a good turn of phrase I like, or if I hear an idiom or something like that that's said by another caster, I will usually write it down. There's some Uber from Overwatch League has a lot of really great flourishes. Sadokist from CSGO is also excellent in that regard. So I can take notes there, and then just other things that I pick up on too.
All right. And then also, so how would you say, I know Siege does the co-casting system, you and Kix, or you and Milosh, you and Emzo, whatever it is. How do you think that helps with the casting, with viewer experience, helping you guys just make you not have to talk for the duration of this 4-hour stream window? And then also, how does like your chemistry with your other casters help? Like, I know obviously you and Kix are a favored, I don't know, couple, I guess. Just you have a lot of chemistry. I know everyone loves that. So how would you say that can help, and how does that help with you guys' casting and also the viewer experience?
I think it's something that's consistent across all broadcasting, is that camaraderie, and as you noted, the chemistry. It helps you gel as people. It helps you gel as coworkers. And I mean, it doesn't really matter what industry it is. You can be somebody working in a machine shop. You can be a doctor. If you like your colleagues, it's going to be a general better environment. I think it's no different with broadcasting. But if anything, it's usually amplified because you don't have a huge window of time to work with. You might have different speaking mechanisms or different speech patterns. You might have a different way of forming sentences or forming thoughts, and the way that you're able to translate that from your head to the vocalization as you're in a broadcast differs wildly. I can tell you that the mindset of going into a cast with Kix is very different than the mindset that I approach when I go into a match with Milosh, and it's the same with everybody, I'd imagine. And why most broadcasting pairs, commonly referred to, as duos, I think that's why it seems to be so favored across every single, whether it's traditional sports or esports, every single arena, is it's just having the ability to rely on the person you're with, to know their mannerisms, to know the way they speak, to be able to play off of that, to know that if you might miss a pretty critical thing that happens, but their observation skills, or they have a keen eye or something along those lines, they're able to catch it and translate it too. That's huge. And it's a huge weight off your shoulders, knowing that you can rely on the person that you're with.
Thank you. And so I think I'm just going to have one last thing. Is there like a favorite story, favorite round, or something that you could just kind of, I don't know, just tell a quick story of your favorite moment in casting and just kind of go into a little bit of detail on that?
I mean, a lot of people ask me what my favorite match is, and I think the best match overall that I've ever casted, indisputably, I still think it's the best match that Rainbow Six has ever seen, was, e.g. Penta at the Six Invitational last year.
Second Invitational, sorry.
Yeah, the second Invitational, the one that, well, not last year, I guess it would technically still be this past year, but I still think that's the best match that we've ever seen. I don't know if it will be topped. Just the whole storyline, EG looking to repeat, Penta going for the Invitational, the reverse sweep, EG storms out 2-0. It's, I'm sure you've probably watched it once, maybe more than that.
I saw it live. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, so there you go. But for me, the best moment was in Sao Paulo. It's my very first time casting. I'm casting with Kix, who I'm really starting to get to know better, and I'd only really known him for a little while at that point. I felt that our casting was really hitting our stride. We've got Ents, who have the curse hanging over their heads, competing in the finals after this miracle run, and then you've got Black Dragons at the time, and for quite a large period of time, widely considered to be the best Brazilian team playing on home soil in the finals, and Ents has just defeated the EG and Font, who are now FaZe. Like, you didn't expect them to be able to get through those, but they did, and they did so. They crushed Font earlier in the day 10-1. So it's like, you've got them going up against Black Dragons. They win their first match, and I know for Kix, he has a lot of sentimental reasons to cheer for the guys on Ents. Some of his greatest friends are on there, and we didn't have a mute button. So usually we have a little we have a little pad next to us where you can mute your mic, So you just hold the button, you can talk to your co-caster and the stream can hear it. We usually have a talkback, but we didn't have any of these. For some reason, it was decided that we didn't have them. So we literally had to write notes on a piece of paper, like in high school, and pass them back and forth when we wanted to communicate things. Well, if you recall that final matchup between Ents and Black Dragons, Black Dragons were up, 4-0, and Ents had to win every single round in a row. And they did. And right as Boonsy clutched on the basement of Chalet, in which Kix made the call, and Kix and I have a weird hybrid where I do more analysis and he does more play-by-play than most traditional do. I wrote down right as Boonsy was clutching and Kix was losing his mind, I wrote down on a piece of paper, oh my God, they're going to do it. And we both felt it and just kind of rode that. And sure enough, Ents won it. And it was just being brand new, really finding my stride with my co-caster, getting to, 2 months ago, I was sitting in my bedroom casting. And now I'm casting the grand finals in Brazil for this huge event. And it just, all of it at once, Ents finally winning after so long, the emotional toll that, Wilkie was having to deal with on his family, the Brazilian Giants coming so close, all of it, it was probably the most memorable match I'll ever cast.
All right, thank you for that. And then just you bringing that up with Kix and his, emotions towards Ents, do you find it difficult for you when you're casting a match with your favorite team, I'm not going to ask who it is unless you like to say, but do you find it difficult to ever hold down your emotions, either love, hatred, whatever, towards a player or a team? Do you ever find it difficult to more keep it on a professional level in something like a serious match, like a grand final or something, where just the emotions are overflowing on whether or not it's a favorite team or not? How do you conceal that, I guess?
I mean, it doesn't really affect me that much. It was worse at the beginning. So it was one of the most interesting things that a lot of people don't think of is when you cast in front of a live crowd, it's very easy for you to get accused of bias, because usually when the crowd roars, it just naturally makes you more excited. Mm-hmm. So at the Invitational, Penta would make an amazing play and you'd get courtesy applause. EG would get a very routine opening kill that was in no way remarkable, and the crowd would explode. Yeah. And it was the same in Brazil. If you go back, it's hard to hear because they had to mute the mics in Brazil because it would have picked up the Brazilian casters. But for us being there, whenever Font or Black Dragons did something, you would naturally get even more excited because you're uplifted by it. For me personally, I don't have a favorite team. There are teams that I cheer for a variety of reasons when I'm off the clock, but I don't think it comes across in a broadcast. The thing that I try to do is I try to maintain as personal and a professional connection with as many teams as possible, so I'm never disappointed with who wins. It's very easy for you to get bogged down in, oh, this team always wins, I don't like them. Oh, this team is really rude, I don't like them. This team has never won anything. Oh my gosh, I want to support them. It's very easy to get stuck in that. But for me, it's there's almost never a match where I'm genuinely upset with the result. The EG Penta matchup at the Invitationals, I was stoked for EG. I'm a North American. I'm on North American soil. That's awesome. They would also repeat. That'd be great. But then you've got Penta trying to establish that they're the most dominant team ever, staving off, this EG team, which is red hot. They pull off the reverse sweep. There's a lot of cool things to look at. And you have to, I think it's really important that you focus on those, because it's very easy for you to get tunnel visioned on one particular moment, one particular player, one particular team, and then it can influence your casting. It's a tough battle, but for me, I just try to keep as many connections with players and teams as possible, so there's always something to be happy with.
All right, that's great. That's all I have for you, so if you just like to say some closing remarks, I guess, and then we can wrap it up.
I appreciate the thoughtful questions. It's always nice to be able to help out, and hopefully it's what you were looking for and what you needed. You said it would take about 15-ish minutes. I don't know if I was too long. I was trying to fill time. So we're sitting at around 16, 17 minutes right now. So I don't know how close it was to hitting the mark, but I'm happy to help. And I mean, It's really interesting because I've actually had a number of people reach out to me for school projects for casting because it's such an I think it's in terms of esports at least, it's such an unexplored profession that a lot
That's
of people
that's why I
have
liked it.
questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Honestly,